Hi, Stitchers. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. I'm Amani here with my co-host Lena, chatting with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work.
On today's episode, we're chatting with Sabrene, the co-director of Baladna, which hosts Palestinian events for the Pacific Northwest community, a Tatreez instructor, community advocate, and proud Palestinian. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, Sabrene.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So let's dive in and first start by asking you if you can share a little bit about you and your family's connection to Palestine.
Yeah, my name is Sabrene, obviously. I was actually born and raised here in Seattle. And so I talk a lot about whether I'm Palestinian or Palestinian American. I've shifted in my identity a lot of times, and this last year I've been a little bit more strategic about saying I'm Palestinian American because they've been trying to erase us, Palestinians, from the U.S. Um, so I am Palestinian American. My family is originally from El Malha. For those who don't know, it's in the southern part of like the Jerusalem area. So they were unfortunately displaced during the Nakba in 1948. All four of my grandparents were from El Malha. My paternal side stayed in the West Bank, and they now live there. They still live there to this day. They were displaced to a refugee camp and still live in that same refugee camp. My mother's side was internally displaced for many years. They went to Deir Dawan first and then eventually made it to Amman. And from there, they made their way to the US after many years of one family member coming after the other. And then my grandparents came here and settled in Seattle. Yeah, and then I was bored.
And growing up, what was your relationship to, were you able to go back to Palestine? And what was your relationship like to your family that was still there?
Yeah, when I was really young, my dad would go like every other year, and I wanted to go with him. I remember being so nervous while he was gone. So my parents were divorced. I would stay with my mom and my mom's family, and I would just feel like, can somebody call my dad? Like I was like 5, 6. I'm like, is he gonna be okay? Is he gonna cross okay? Is he gonna get to his family? And at the time you didn't have social media where you can just check people's locations. Um, and finally, when I went back, I was in fifth grade, I believe. Um, and that was like the most life-changing experience for me. I've never gone to a place anywhere in the world other than my grandmother's house and like instantly felt at home. Crossing through we have to go through the land crossing because my dad has Hoya. So crossing from Amman into Palestine, like even when I was in fifth grade, I still understood like there was this sense of like belonging that just washed over me, like I was returning home. It's like you get addicted to that feeling. Like I always want to go back home. Yeah, I went back 3 times from like fifth grade to 10th grade. And then life got busy. I started working and went to college and stuff. So I actually went back for the first time as an adult in 2023, in the summer of 2023. And I took my husband, who is Samoan. He's not Palestinian, and he wants to move there.
Oh, I
That's how
love
much
that.
Yes.
it was like, I don't know, it was so hot. So there's a little bit of like, I was miserable from the heat, but like so happy to see my family and just be around my people.
That is so powerful. That is so beautiful. How is the relationship with Palestinians in Seattle? Like, were you in Seattle the whole time, like up until today, or you've always been in Seattle? Like, how is the community there? Because I actually we didn't say this in the intro, but I met Sabrine through Hala, who was on a previous episode. So I knew that you were Seattle based, but curious about kind of growing up in that community.
Yeah, it's an interesting community. My dad is a pretty big Palestinian activist here, so I grew up taking to the streets. I was the little one at all of the protests carrying the flags and banners. And it's funny when I see people, especially in this last year, as I've seen like other activists that are lifelong activists, they'll like look at me and they're like, I know your face, but you're like, taller or bigger or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Amin's daughter. But So my dad has kind of also instilled that connection of Palestine in us through his activism. And then, of course, post 9/11, the activism turned from not just being Palestinian exclusive, but Muslim advocacy. And he was very involved with like ensuring Muslim community was safe here. There was some crazy things happening, as I'm sure you all know, with wiretaps, people being detained, people not being able to get back into the US. And my dad would take us to all of the meetings with him. So like I learned a lot of these things as a really young kid. And I was really connected to, I wouldn't necessarily say just the Palestinian community, but like the activist community at large here. I think the Palestinian community here is large-ish, but it's definitely grown a lot with like the tech companies that have grown here. So there's we call it the East Side, which is like east of Seattle. There's a really big Muslim community and a lot of like Arab in general, and a lot of the Palestinians live on that side. When my grandparents settled here in 1970, they could probably count other families on one hand. So, and not just Palestinian, like Arab families. So it's just grown exponentially.
That's amazing. That's really cool to see that like transformation within your like diaspora community too. So I want to veer the conversation a little bit and kind of dive into your Tatreez journey. When did Tatreez come into your life? And how did it come into your life?
I mean, I've always been obsessed with my grandmother's like thobes, and like I recognize the privilege that I have that I grew up with my grandparents, because a lot of Palestinians in diaspora don't have familial connections in that way. And so that and they would always like share stories about specifically Malha, but like Lublad in general. And you would see like the value that they would place in their clothing, in the hub, like in the food. My grandfather would put his phone on his chest and like listen to really old school classic music, and just sit there in silence, like listening to the music. So that's really where my obsession with Tatreez started, because Tata would just wear the most beautiful like garments, and I would never see anybody else wearing anything like that. And I would say when I started actually being interested in stitching, it was when I was a teenager, and actually Wafa name came from yeah, you both are nodding, you're like, yep. She came to the Northwest actually with her mom and did a session here. And I ended up going with my stepmom and my little sister. And it was interesting how like it felt very familiar to stitch, even though I'd never stitched before in my life. Like I'd always threaded that as needles and stuff, but I've never personally stitched. And I don't know, it was just like a very intoxicating feeling. I loved the feeling of it, the feeling that I was like connected somehow to my roots by doing it. And like the second layer to that is my stepmom actually has a Tatreez business. So she sells Palestinian handmade embroidery from Bethlehem. So from the like local artisans in Bethlehem. My family will send it to her, and she'll sell it here. And it's a really, like for her, it's really important for her to be able to support the local artisans there. And you know, the dollar stretches, like in Palestine, we can sell something here for like 10 times the price as it would be sold in Palestine. And that's not to say like we're exploiting, but it's just like the dollar is different, right?
Yeah. Well, let's also remember like it is a lot of labor that these artisans are putting in. So
100%.
They should be paid a fair price. So yeah, appreciate that.
Well, and some people here in like the US, you know, even when we're talking about the dollar, they're like, why is this pillowcase like $65? And then we talk about
Girl,
yeah, I trust me. Actually, I just saw Dina's post about how much the thobe you made would have been, and I was like, listen, over $1,000 and also priceless.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, but we have that conversation with a lot of customers where we have to explain to them actually they're hand stitched. People are not actually very familiar with handmade embroidery in general, so it clicks for a lot of people that, oh, this takes a lot of work to do. So yeah, that's kind of how I started, but I didn't actually continue stitching because life. And
Yeah.
so in 2023, when I went back to the bled, it's, I love telling this story. If any of my students are listening to this ever, they're going to be like, Sabrene, you tell this story all the time. And it's true, I do, but it's the best story ever. I walked into my aunt and uncle's house, and they have the two living rooms, right? The one you can
Hmm.
sit in, the one you can't sit in. The one you can't sit in was like mind blowing. I was like, what are all of these pillows and wall hangings and the table runner? And I'm looking at my aunt and she's like, yeah, I made all of them. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way you sat and made all of these. And she did. She told me like, I made this with my pregnancy and I made this with, she had all these stories to tell about them. And so I was like, can you teach me how your techniques and all of that? And so what I didn't put together was that she's a principal. So she was like, okay, be downstairs tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I'll have Shay and Manakish or whatever ready for you. And so me and my little sister went downstairs at 9 a.m. for 3 days straight, and we had like an intensive Tatreez course with her.
I love this.
It was so good. And what was the best part was they were like my aunts were in the kitchen and they were making warak dawali. And so they were rolling the dawali and the warak, and me and my sister were listening to like really old school Palestinian music. And they're like, these girls are more Palestinian than we are as we're So it was just a whole vibe. Like, and so yeah, I've been hooked ever since. Yeah. So that's kind of the story.
Yeah, I
So
love that. It's really special to be able to have a deeper dive with your family members too.
Yeah.
yeah, and also does she offer these classes?
Right? Can Lena and I go
Can we
to?
go for 3-day intensive
Oh,
Tatreez?
I'm
I would
always down to
die.
take a Tatreez class.
yeah. I would love for her to start doing that. I think that she's wrapping up her principal job soon. I think I'm hoping she's retiring soon. So I'll pitch it to her. Like, listen, I'm teaching classes because of 3 days with you. You should do this.
There we
Yeah.
go. There we
And it's
go.
and it's the vibe. It's the what Diwali being rolled next door and the old music. I love it. I love it.
So I want to talk a little bit too. So, okay, so you in 2023, you really got back into it, and like, where has your Tetris journey taken you since then?
Oh man, I wish it had taken me to more stitching. But I have not had a chance to stitch, honestly. I can actually show you. Do you mind if I show you what I've been working on?
Show us. We'll have
Okay.
to share pictures on social media for people.
Yeah.
Also that's a good reminder because I would like photos of your teta's athwab as
Oh, I
well.
Yeah.
got you.
Oh,
Yeah.
and your aunt's house.
I got you. I got you.
The room with all the
All of the
threes.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I left Vlad, my aunt, the same aunt, gifted me this pillow because I was so obsessed with it. Right?
Beautiful.
It's so pretty. She handmade this.
Is
And
that stitched on Ida fabric?
it is. It's stitched on eye,
Wow.
and then the
That's
back is
amazing.
obviously like pillow material.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And so I said, you know what? Like, I'm gonna make my aunt proud and I'm gonna make another pillowcase. And listen, this is so sad. But I've been stuck in the same place for the last like
You have a
six,
long way to go.
All right,
I've
everyone, we need to motivate to get this done.
I stopped taking it to my
Sabrine,
Tatreez
girl.
classes. I know I stopped taking it to my Tatreez classes because it stayed in the same spot for so long. But honestly, like the any free time that I have, I filled with
Mhm.
activism. Any free time that I've had, I
Mhm.
filled with like hosting events, teaching Tatreez. And so
Mhm.
for me personally, I just have not had a lot of time to do stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
It sounds very sad, but like I'm very proud of my activism. So it's not like I don't want it to come off like, oh, I'm so sad for myself. But I'm hoping that I will be able to start stitching very, very soon and finish this pillow. And actually, Dad's already called dibs on it, so I don't even get to keep finish it.
We
Uh,
want you to document the journey of maybe that'll help motivate you to finish and like keep stitching.
yeah, I'm
But
hoping so.
it also seems like, I mean, you're still engaged with the art through teaching. And so how did that come to be? I know you mentioned like the 3-day intensive with your
Yeah,
aunt.
yeah. I mean, honestly, October of last year was so jarring, and very, very soon after that, we started Baladna. And simultaneously, we were also working on the Seattle ceasefire resolution. So, like, advocating on our city council level for them to call for a ceasefire. Um, and through one of those meetings, I met Hannah. And I was like, the Seattle community, I said it's large-ish, but it's pretty small. Like, everyone kind of knows who everyone is. And so we did public comment at Seattle City Council. And I was like, who is this fiery Palestinian who's like, she's like tatted, she has her vest on, like, who is this? And she's like going in on Seattle City Council. And for so long, and I'm not saying this is like right or wrong, but we've all been conditioned to like be the nice Palestinians, like the two-state solution, like, you want to be their friend so that they recognize your humanity. So I have not been around a lot of Palestinians who like with their whole chest will go in on people who are not right? Like we have conversations at home, we have conversations out in the public for so long. And this was like October, November. I'm like, dang, she's going in. So anyways, I pulled her into the advocacy we were doing with the Seattle City Resolution. And in one of the Zoom meetings, I like see this motion. I'm like, what is she doing? So I text her and I'm like, are you stitching right now during this like political meeting? What are you?
We love you, Hannah.
Oh my God,
Yes,
I love her.
yes.
And she ends up sending me a picture of what she worked on, and it was handala and like a paraglider. And I was like, I am obsessed with you. I was like, listen, so how do you feel about doing Tatreez classes together? I was like, we need to bring this to the world. And so that's really how it started with the Tatreez classes. We did it as a collaboration from Baladna and Seattle Resistance Tatreez. But the actual main goal of the Tatreez classes, of course, is to like celebrate the art and talk about how like beautiful it is and all the joy that comes with that. But actually it's like a resistance class. And we say like capital R resistance because how don't people come into our class and like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to embroider. It's like, no, you're gonna learn about resistance and us claiming indigeneity to the land and how we have ties to it, and evidence of it through Tatreez. And actually you're gonna be donating, your ticket sales are going to Gaza. So like it hit so many different avenues that we really cared about. And most importantly, it was being able to support Palestinian in Gaza. So Tatreez was just one of the many ways that we as a community wanted to support Palestine.
So wait, can you tell us more a little bit about like what people were told before they walked in and then what they left with? Because it sounds like almost they didn't realize that you guys were going to go into all of that through Tatreez as kind of the tool of doing it. Is that did I understand that right?
Yeah, I mean, they're just like flyers at say Tatreez classes or like come learn about Palestinian embroidery, right? And so for many people who came to our Tatreez classes we've never met before. So they don't know like how proud Hada and I are of being Palestinian. Anybody who knew us knew what they were walking into. They knew we're not just gonna have Tatreez classes. We're gonna be talking about Palestine, and our love for it and all that good stuff. But yeah, there were a lot of people who were like, oh, I wanted to find a way to give back to Palestine. Like I wanted to bring my friends to your classes. I told my daughter about it, my nieces, whatever. And so a lot of people just started showing up. And it's about a 30 to 45-minute presentation about the history of Tatreez and how Palestinian women in particular have used it as a form of resistance. And we take it all the way through, I would say like mainly the early 2000s, but we go back in like early 1900s to early 2000s, and Hada has some tidbits, like historical tidbits about like even like thousands of years ago. So yeah, I just don't think that people really understand everything that is Palestinian is historical, is political, it is all of the things because we've been forced for it to be positioned in that way when actually it's beautiful art. Like that's actually what it is. It's actually our clothing, right? So we don't try to like trick people, but I just don't think that they realize what they're walking into.
No, I think that definitely makes sense. And I love that you put it that way because, Lena and I always have these conversations with each other, with other people around like what the role of Tatreez is in Palestinian resistance, what the role of culture is. And I love how you guys are presenting these classes even. It's like, yeah, this is an art form, but like, guess what? It's Palestinian art. So it's going to be, it's a part of the overarching Palestinian resistance movement because keeping our art alive keeps us alive and keeps our history alive. And that's exactly what the settler colonial state wants to erase. So I personally love that that is a part of your class, and it seems like uh, a very thought out part of the class, which I think is really important.
I think maybe I have a question for you that's a little bit shifting gears. And it's kind of based on like the thing that you said at the very beginning of this episode, which is that you recognize the privilege of growing up with your grandparents. And so, for many Palestinians in the diaspora who don't have that privilege, how can they tap into Tatreez as a way of tracing their lineage and connecting to their heritage? Like, where would you advise people to start who maybe don't have a family member who can show them and teach them Tatreez? And sometimes their grandparents, like in my case, my grandmother never really practiced Tatreez anyways. So, like, even though I have access to her as an individual, I didn't access Tatreez through her.
Oh, well, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of social media. Like, there's pros and cons to everything, but I mean, both of you are incredible in the advocacy that you guys do in bringing Tatreez to our communities in a very accessible way, in a way that honors the art and also teaches. I think that like it seems like a very inaccessible craft or like I don't know, historical like piece of context from Palestine, but there are just so many different resources that people can tap into, which I'm sure that you all are tapped into. And we provide that to our students as well, because a 2 hour workshop with like an hour after to just stitch together is not long enough, right? So we point people to like Tarzan, we point people to, of course, Wafat, to you all. Like, we're not the first and we're not going to be the last, and we have not paved the way for Tatreez by any means. We very much recognize that we're just part of this larger collective that is trying to keep Tatreez kind of at the forefront of Palestinian art and culture. I think that also there are so many different ways that we all as community can bring people to like this intergenerational kind of setting. I would say something that I've been really interested in doing, and when I did my master's, it was COVID. So I couldn't actually do the capstone project that I wanted to do, but part of the capstone project that I wanted to do was connecting the younger generation with like the datas of the of the community, because I saw this gap. Like, I'm sure my grandmother loves all of us as her grandkids, but I'm sure she wants to hang out with people that are at her level, that she can talk about Vlad with, that she can talk about recipes with, whatever, like whatever she wants to talk about. And not always be like teaching people about herself and her culture and her life. And like a step further than that, I know that there are a lot of both generations who would love grandkids to share stuff with, and young kids who would love grandparents to learn from. And so I would love to create a space that is intergenerational, in which we have cooking classes, we have classes around Tatreez and what, not even necessarily like that is teaching Tatreez, but talking about, like, I share this a lot. Now that I know how to stitch, there is no way. That always used to say, I used to sit around with my friends, بالملح, and we used to like eat, visit, and drink like shai or coffee and Tatreez and gossip. And I'm like, I can't even I can't even do one of those things.
No stitching was actually being done at these sessions.
Yeah, I was like, you were doing all of that and like creating beautiful clothes. Like, there's no way that and so just hearing those kinds of stories and being able to like, she just so loved her time in Al-Malha that it's like a magical time for her. Everything was possible. it was like the most beautiful place on earth. The people were amazing. I mean, that is going to be ingrained in her mind for life. It is. She's 86 now, right? So I just think that the older generation being able to share that with us is gold. Like there's nothing that can ever replace that.
Oh, yeah, that is really special. I think if you have elders, near you or even that you can talk to, it's important to talk to them and hear those stories and get that from them while we still have them around. And I like how you talked a little bit about community and, kind of being able to get connections within building this community. And with you and Hala teaching Tatreez locally, like how has your Tatreez, like your local Tatreez community, like grown and evolved?
Yeah, I've seen multiple Tatreez workshops pop up in the last few months, which is really exciting. We also have brought in, like we call them our OG students, the folks that have come to like multiple sessions where they're at the first session, who actually are way more skilled than we are. And we tell them all the time, like, you guys are, I don't know about Hala, definitely more skilled than me in a lot of ways. And so in the last few sessions, we've actually brought them in to kind of be like table captains or help out while we're doing instruction. What's wild while you're teaching is like knots come out of nowhere and they're the most difficult knots. And when you have like 60 students in a class, I'm like, wait, like we have to do everything by step now. It's like, okay, thread your needle, stop. Do your first stitch, stop. And we learned it the hard way because there are some knots where it's like, Halas, you can't get it out, And so I think that it's been really beautiful to see like other people, even other Palestinians, be able to really embrace their culture in a way where they don't have other outlets to do that in. We also offer, like through Baladna, we also offer community gatherings for the same reason. So we actually have one this weekend where the point of the community gatherings is to build connections and to find Palestinians who maybe have similar interests as you or like are interested in learning things together. And so we have really tried to create this environment in the Northwest that like you don't have to feel ashamed or feel like you're behind because you didn't know very much about your culture, your heritage, or because your parents or grandparents were too traumatized to talk about it. Whatever the reason is that maybe you're still like at 0 or 10 of your learning journey, everyone is welcome. And for those of us who have been like lifelong on the front lines for Palestine, really stepping into leadership positions where we are creating safe spaces for people. We are breaking some of the generational cycles that we've been a part of, where all Palestinians are welcome. Everyone who supports Palestine is welcome, but specifically focusing on the Palestinian community, regardless of differing opinions, regardless of who you support, who you don't support, whatever the case may be, we're actually much stronger united. And so whether that's uniting over Tatreez, whether it's uniting over cooking, whether it's uniting over kids' classes, whatever that looks like, we've really been intentional about creating spaces like that. And Hala also hosts Tatreez circles. And specifically, she does Palestinian-only Tatreez circles. And it's to create those bonds with each other as Palestinians. And to like, there's things that you can say to Palestinians where we just get it. And then we have Tatreez circles for like the greater community to join in on. But I've seen it evolve in ways where like there's group chats where like there's no Palestinians in the group chats, and there's people that are just like Tatreezing with friends group chats or whatever, and they're meeting up at cafes and doing Tatreez together. It's just really sweet, and I think especially when folks who have attended our classes send us their art and they're like so proud of what they've done, they also are very aware, because we make sure that they're aware, that they learn this through advocating for Gaza. And that's at the core of our classes. Like we are here specifically to advocate for Palestine. And if that's not what you're here for, like, maybe this isn't the space for you.
So what is next for your Tatreez journey? I know you're working on your pillow. We're going to get that done 2025, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna post on social media so everyone can hold you accountable. The entire community will be checking in.
Yeah, that's what will be pumped. What's next for my Tatreez journey? I mean, I don't know. I have seen you encouraging people to make their own thobes, which seems like such a far journey for me, but I was talking to Tata about it the other day because we did a waste canvas class, and she was like correcting me on everything. Mainly because I was speaking in English, and she was like, "No, no, this is what it's called in Arabic." So she was just like, we used to get the marca and we used to get the different panels, and then we'd stitch them together. And so anyway, so she made it seem a lot easier than than what I
Yeah.
think it is. So maybe I don't know, maybe working on my first thobe would be my next journey. But that seems like a big step from a pillowcase to a thobe. But
Girl, well, that was actually my literal journey. I went from
oh,
pillowcase, learned how to sew, how to make the pillow, and then I jumped to the thobe. So
see,
maybe,
okay, so
maybe it's a
maybe you're
sign. It's nasib. I think you should do it.
maybe, yeah, I
And
would
you
love.
should get it. You should learn directly from Teta. That's so beautiful.
I know. Oh my gosh. She wishes. I think the reason why actually she wants the pillowcase is because she was sharing with me how she wishes that she could still see the needles,
Oh,
like the holes
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah.
yeah.
And she also has an injury, so she can't actually like twist her wrist very much.
Mhm.
So I can tell when I'm stitching in front of her that it like activates a part of her where she starts talking
Mm.
about her childhood again, and she starts telling us stories. Even my mom one time was like, she never tells me these stories. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Start stitching with me and you'll hear these stories.
Oh.
So it's yeah, I think it's just really special. But we'll see. I also am really interested in like this is a super tangent, but I'm really interested in like finding ways to be more size inclusive for like
Mm.
Tatreez in general. You can only see my head, so it's not really a good example. But when I went to the bled last year, first of all, I'm 5'7", which I don't think is very tall, but there it's super tall because the dresses would not pass my ankles.
Oh no.
So, yeah, trying to
That's
find
that's so funny actually that you're saying like when you said size inclusive, that wasn't what I was thinking. Was
yeah, well, I'm talking about both height and obviously
okay.
sizing. Like I think a lot of the stores go to like 4 or 5. And yeah, people I would walk in and I mean I love my people, but I was getting judged. I'd walk in and people
Mm.
be like, we don't have anything your size. It's like, dang, can you at least like soften the
Mm.
blow a little bit? But yeah, when I got married to like this was in 2021 when we had our actual wedding. I was trying to find just white and red. Like that's all I wanted was white and red. And you could not had on my stepmom's sister went to like every store and you could just not find anything white and red that was size inclusive. So I wore burgundy,
Mm.
burgundy and gold. But yeah, I'm really interested. I don't know what that looks like. And that's obviously not like me stitching my
That
own.
looks like you making your own thobe.
Well, for
That's a
sure.
good start. It's a
For
good
sure.
start.
But like for the broader community, I would
Yeah,
love to
yeah.
see more. Yeah, I would love to see more girls that look like me being able to
Hmm.
find thobes for their henna nights and their graduations and their,
Hmm.
all the things. So
I wonder if you could like I know you mentioned like obviously your stepmother has she brings in thwab from Bethlehem. Like I wonder if there's like an opportunity for you to work directly with the women and the artisans that she works with there to kind of create your own line
I
almost like
know. That would be amazing. To be honest with you, the stuff that she gets mainly because I think it just is made so much faster. They're like scarves and pencil cases
mm,
and pillowcases and
mm-hmm,
those kinds of things. I think they can just turn it over so much faster.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would love to get in touch with like manufacturers, even that just even if they're not handmade and they're
Mm-hmm.
machine made, like just getting Tatreez out in the world and being more accessible, I think is important for Palestinians in diaspora who don't have that instant connection. Like even people in Chicago or like y'all don't know the struggle. The Northwest has nothing for Palestinians. We don't have
Oh.
cafes. We don't have like nothing for clothing. We don't have any of it. So I'm just yeah, I just want everyone to be able to if they want to engage with Palestinian culture that they have the options accessible to them to do so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're
Uh,
gonna we're gonna work on this.
Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna do some encouraging because I feel like there's an opportunity for you to help more people wear beautiful tattoos.
I
So
hope
I think we should do this.
so.
yeah, I can see a follow-up episode when you
Yeah.
launch something.
Wow.
So we will definitely be
Big dreams.
discussing that, keeping in touch. I love that.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. We have a lot of work we're doing. I didn't share this, but I actually work for a legal nonprofit right now that I pitched a job to them because there's so much hate and discrimination for our community right now that I was like, I need to get out of my role, which I loved, but I need to get out of my role because the community needs somebody that is advocating for them. So I can't even imagine starting a new project right now. There's so much like on top of my Tatreez classes in Baladna, like there's just so much work that it needs to be done. I can't wait for the day where I can start like a passion project like that. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted.
All right, well, one step at a time, but you know, we're still going to encourage. We're still going to encourage.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so we always like to ask people around this idea of what are the major life lessons that you have been able to gain from Tatreez?
That is a really good question. I mean, obviously, like patience is one that is just everyone has to learn. I didn't have a lot of patience, and I'm learning. But like life lessons on a much deeper level is what like solidarity and what showing up looks like through like tangible means. I would say is it has been a huge lesson because like I said, we of course we focus on Tatreez and of course we focus on the beauty of it and the art and the joy and all of the beautiful things that we know it is. But hearing community members say, I have a Palestinian friend and I want them to hear about how they can trace their lineage to find out where their family was really from. Because like my family, they live in Bethlehem, but if you look at Tlab or Tatreez from Bethlehem, you would never know they're from Jerusalem, right? So if those were only pictures that I had, unfortunately, that's where my ancestry would stop. I wouldn't know too much about it. So I think that like the lessons that I've learned are the ways in which we can take beautiful cultural crafts and not only resist through it, but like offer people pieces that are missing in their lives. Like imagine not knowing, there's so many people in the world that don't know where they're from because of colonialism. And being able to trace your lineage through art is like that's like the coolest. I don't know, I think that's the coolest thing ever. So I think that in a lot of ways I've seen outside community members kind of offer that to Palestinians specifically. But I think the second part to that is like it doesn't take a lot for us as Palestinians to like create beautiful community that is empowering, that is loving, that is caring, that holds each other. And Tatreez allows us to really like take a beat and through each thread that we're stitching, create roots, I think, to our land, to our culture, to the claims that are, you know, they're trying to erase us. And I think through each stitch, it's like we're pushing back on that. And so seeing Palestinians come to our classes and do Tatreez with us and have these conversations about how they're even more proud to be Palestinian once they learn about Tatreez, I think those are like the life lessons that I've left with. When I am done with my thobe, I will have so many lessons though about like what I've learned through stitching. But a lot of it is vicarious through community because that's been my part this last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the community is a big part of Tatreez too,
Totally.
as an overall. So, but I also think that this means even more reason for you to
Yeah,
start your thobe. Like, you know,
totally.
you got to get into your wisdom era.
Oh my gosh, when my aunt has they all follow like everything that I'm doing and it's cute because sometimes they'll reach out and they'll be like, you need to be careful, like whatever. I'm like, you guys are telling me to be careful? Like, no, this is I'm fighting for my people. Don't worry about me. But it's cute when they see like the Tatreez stuff and even my uncles who are like they're like the biggest jokesters. They're always like between them and my dad, everyone's always clowning on me about like And Hala had the same experience with her family where they're like, "Are you sure that you're like qualified to teach Tatreez?" And I'm like, they're listening to me because they saw my journey when I was like drinking the shai and like trying to stitch properly. That yeah, they don't know, they haven't seen the progression that I've reached here in the US. So I'm excited to go back one day and show them my skills. So we'll see.
I love
So
this so much.
cute.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So cute.
Sabrine, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you and hearing about your Tatreez journey. Where can everyone find you and follow you, get in touch with all the things, especially if they're in Seattle?
Yeah, my Instagram is very easy. It's just my first and last name, Sabrene Auda. And our organization's name is Baladna. So it's baladna.pnw. We mainly use Instagram for the org. I mainly use Instagram because I'm 30 but really 90 when it comes to technology. So we don't have to talk about it. But yeah, I'm really bad at responding, but hit me up. I eventually see it and we'll send you all the information. For people message us all the time about upcoming events. We always post our events on Instagram. So that's the best place to find us.
Amazing. We'll go ahead and include that in the show notes. Thank you again, Sabrine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you both. And thank you for everything that you all are doing for the Tatreez community, but like the Palestinian community at large. I hope you all know how much it means to us as Palestinians.
You're so
Thank
sweet.
you.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we had Sabrine on. We're able to chat with her about her Tatreez journey. And I'm definitely going to continue to encourage her to explore this opportunity. Like I love, I know it was just at the kind of the end, but I love the idea of her being able to make Tatreez more inclusive and have it on the bodies of more Palestinians.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. And, if there clearly is a need, and I think who better to fill that void than a fellow Palestinian who practices Tatreez? I think that would be so powerful. I really liked your idea actually of kind of tapping into her stepmom's business too. I think that's a really cool place to start, at least to explore.
Yeah, we'll talk to her more about it. We'll be the big sisters that'll like convince her into
The
it.
seeds have been planted.
Right, right. I also do. I really love, she also said this kind of towards the end, but I really loved what she was talking about, like how cool it is to be able to understand your lineage and your history through art. And that's just saying that I think is really interesting perspective on Tatreez and how Tatreez is a form of Palestinian storytelling. So I'm glad that she mentioned that because I think that's going to definitely stick in my head for a while.
Ah, so, so good as always, as always. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Tatreez Talk. We want to hear about your Tatreez journeys. So please share your stories with us at tatreeztalk@gmail.com, and we might just have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform, and be sure to leave a 5-star review. You can follow me at Lina Stolb and Amani at Minamani, and of course, follow the pod at Tatreez Talk. We will talk to you guys soon.